Welcome back. The redistricting issue is hard. Um, because I really do. I don't want to dilute anybody. Um, I have a problem because it's hard because you can't ignore the fact that the Native American community kind of votes as a block. I mean, there's a reason why you have these little blue patches sometimes in North Dakota elections, and they're right
Except
around.
for in 2024, Rob, they didn't. There's 1,000 people that voted for Brian that didn't vote for Judy Estenson.
Right. Although they were still voting for a Native American.
Well,
It's
okay. Well, but then again, isn't that part of the goal is to have Native American representation?
sure, sure. But again, I feel like you're talking about a very specific anecdote, and I'm talking about a more philosophical approach. I have a problem. I think it is, and maybe this gets into just my disdain for like intersectionalism, where everybody's a group, and I don't like people. I don't like treating people like groups, even when they behave like groups or like tribes at times. I don't like treating people like that as a matter of law. I like the idea that every American and every North Dakotan is equal. And we're going to draw our lines. It should be math. It should be, driven by just how do we make these districts as geographically small as possible while also meeting the population requirements. That's really the challenge, and that should be the challenge. Obviously, other things get injected into it, but this lawsuit has stuck in my craw, if you couldn't tell from the beginning.
What?
From the beginning, because I do think that our legislature made a good faith effort, and there is a reason why Native American lawmakers in the legislature at the time, including Senator Marcellet, voted for it and applauded it. And I understand the Native Americans are not monolithic. Not every Native American in the state agreed with those Native Americans in the legislature, but you can't tell me that the Native Americans in the legislature voted for a map that was designed to dilute the Native American vote, because that was not the intent at all. And I don't even really think it was the outcome either, given the outcome of the elections we had under that map.
So here's the first thing I would say is middle-aged white woman should not declare that she's a minority because she was drawn into a legislative
I think
map.
she worded that a little awkwardly. Yeah.
Yeah, well, I worry that that's not the way we should look at things. I think we should be applauding the fact that we had 5 of the 6 candidates in District 9 were Native American. And I think the fact is, if we start electing Republican Native Americans to the legislature, that's probably a good thing, that it's a little bit more bipartisan from those communities. Again, I think 5 of the 6 folks running as Native Americans is a good thing. I also, you say the lawsuit stuck in your craw. What's stuck in my craw is the way that this op-ed was written as a woe is me, I'm a Republican, and this district is unfair. Well, I mean, as long as redistricting has been around, Rob, one party or the other has been drawing districts that are unfair. Just the fact that this one went to a lawsuit, somehow we're supposed to feel bad. And again, she's the one that framed this as a Republican can't win. A Republican can't win. I think what she was saying is a white person can't win.
The problem with it too is fairness is subjective. And I would argue, like I made the argument about, you can't, like, if we're going to make it about race and you try to promote one race interest, you end up doing it at the expense of another race's interest. And that becomes very, very hard. I would argue the same thing is redistricting. Because you draw the lines in such a way that hurts one lawmaker's chances. Well, you're enhancing another lawmaker's chances. And that's just the way the math works. They're going to have winners and losers, and the losers are going to think it's unfair, and the winners are going to think it's fair, and time rolls on. And it doesn't matter who does the map. We could have an AI algorithm doing the map, and the losers would still think it's unfair, and the winners would still think it's fair, because we're humans, and it's a human process, and that's it.
In the history of redistricting, the majority party has created a bunch of 55, 45 districts that help their party rather than having 55, 45 districts that help the other party, right? I mean, that's what you do. You manipulate things around the edges to create a majority of districts that support you. It does it the majority party no good to have 95-5 districts because, right? You want to create 60-40, 55-40. But again, I mean, this is going to go through the courts. I mean, I think what the Supreme Court is going to hear is, does an individual have the right to sue, to bring litigation against a map? We're going to find that out. I think we're in this sort of weird time. I didn't like her also bringing up the fact that Colette Brown hadn't campaigned in Ramsey County.
I can't say if that's true or not.
Well, and I had heard that, and I wasn't going to bring this up, that Judy Estenson in 2022 never stepped foot on Spirit Lake, right? I mean, so this is the kind of stuff we're just going to be throwing around. I don't know. It felt like it was too much about Judy and not enough about
I think that's something too. When we start talking about if we take affirmative action policy for something, we say, well, white men have been at the top of the heap, so therefore we need to do some things to help the people who haven't been at the top of the heap. And you talk about it in the aggregate, and that makes sense. But we experience it as individuals.
Yep.
So now all of a sudden it's you've got a white kid from Appalachia who came out of poverty, who's being told, because all these men who you had, all these white men who aren't you, who came well before you, who are now well established in life, because they had privilege, we're going to move you down to the bottom of the heap. That feels unfair to that individual. And I think that's what Judy, I want to be fair to Judy. I think that's what this felt unfair to her.
Right. And I could understand why it would feel unfair to her.
And I don't think the ultimate solution to this is going to come from the courts. I think the court might set a new precedent, and then we're just going to see more wrangling along others. I am tired of these things being settled in the courts all the time. I would like to see the law written so that it's better. I think
let me ask you this.
Right to act is the problem.
So again, the Senate is 42-5, and the House is 81-13. Why wouldn't the majority party just let this go? They're still going to be in the super majority. They're still going to, why not just let this map, when Welty agreed to redraw why not just let it go? What are we gaining right now? I understand it's a big deal with Judy Estenson, but
I think a lot of it, we're dealing with human beings. And I think at the end of the day, you have a lot of people who are offended by the idea when they made a good faith effort to draw a good map, and then we're told in national headlines saying North Dakota tried to suppress the Native American vote. I think it's really about that.
Yeah. Yes. I think it's very interesting to think about the legislators who were on that committee and the efforts that were put in. I think my wife was on that committee, if I remember correctly. But anyway, the courts will determine what's next on this thing. I think at the end of the day, in terms of policy coming out of the 2027 legislature, probably won't affect much.
No, none of this is going to affect
But
much.
what's fun is you and we're
really fighting over the principle of the thing.
Yeah, no, for sure. And it's a fun thing for you and I to fight about, because sometimes we agree too much, so it's fun to fight.
We need to remind the audience that we come from very different perspectives on the ideological scale. The problem is we have all these other things going on that make nice differences feel very small.
Yeah. We have Trump. Right.
all these other things that are happening. Speaking of things that are happening, we had a guest on before I went on vacation for my daughter's nuptials, which by the way,
we sort of got cut off when we started to talk about that, because Steve Forbes was excited to talk to us on Wednesday.
Everything went great. It was a wonderful ceremony. I cried a whole bunch. It was really, really good. We had a lot of fun. But I wanted to talk a little bit, we had Dustin McNally on the show. Now, people remember he was chosen in District 42 to be the replacement for Representative Emily O'Brien, who went to work for Governor Armstrong's administration of the Department of Health and Human Services. So that created a vacancy. The District 42 Republicans were obliged by state law to fill that vacancy. They chose Dustin McNally, which was kind of a surprise because the populist MAGA wing of the party has been winning a lot of those district fights. McNally won. After that, subsequent to that, and I think I'm the only person in the media to write about it, and maybe because it's such a picayune issue, Brandon Pritchard, who now lives in District 42, former state lawmaker, now works for this organization, Citizens Alliance of North Dakota. They're based in
allegedly going to law school at UND.
Allegedly going to law school at UND. I have not confirmed that. He previously claimed to be going to law schools. He didn't actually attend. So, anyway, he sent out a press release from Citizens Alliance of North Dakota calling on McNally to resign. And what he found was apparently did an open records request for McNally because Mr. McNally is a engineering professor at the University of North Dakota, and did an open records request for his emails. And what he found is an email of sort of talking points or sort of an outline of a platform or a speech or something that Dustin had written in his work Outlook and then emailed to himself. And so he got a copy, Pritchard got a copy of that. Now, North Dakota law prohibits the use of taxpayer resources for political purposes, which obviously McNally getting appointed to the legislature, that's a political purpose. So he should not have used his state Outlook account to write those talking points and email them to himself. But in the grand spectrum of wrongs done to the taxpayers by elected officials misappropriating taxpayer resources, boy, was this a small thing. And I think Dustin McNally, he shouldn't have done that. That was
and he agreed, right? He agreed when you talked to him.
We agreed. I think his thing was, yeah, he got me. That was his sort of his response, and which, okay, great. I did it. I shouldn't have done it. That was a mistake.
And let's be clear, this did not actually, he can't use taxpayer resources to do political stuff, but this didn't cost the state one additional penny.
Right. So it's not like he charged a bunch of mailings to the state account or something. He used an email account that he was going to have anyway. The cost to the taxpayers was zero.
Yeah.
So, yeah, shame on you, Dustin. But the laughable thing is that Pritchard called on McNally to resign, which was remarkable to me, given all of the people that Brandon Pritchard has not called on to resign. We could talk about Representative Lori Van Winkle, who took a vacation during the last legislative session, went on a ski vacation and collected her legislative pay during it. And oh, by the way, during that same session, suggested that women seeking fertility treatment through IVF had been cursed by God. Representative Desiree Morton, who went on a tirade about conspiracy theories. Representative Jeff Overson, who has promoted the idea maybe Muslims have it right about forcing women to dress conservatively. Representative Nico Rios, who was arrested for DUI, among his tirade that he subjected the arresting officers to, that included bigoted and homophobic remarks, pulled the old "Do you know who I am" card and tried to use his status as a legislator to get out of the DUI, even at one point saying, "I want to call the Attorney General, Drew Wrigley," which, by the way, I've spoken to Drew Wrigley several times since then. He would not have intervened in any way.
Or taken the call, likely.
Or taken the call at 2:00 in the morning or whatever time it was. By the way, Rios also on social media during the last legislative session called for the overthrow of Mexico's quote-unquote Jew president, which, by the way, the Mexican president is of Jewish descent, and I don't think that should matter to anybody except to Representative Rios. Not only did Brandon Pritchard not call on any of these people to resign, in fact, they all got the top rating from his organization when he graded them after coming out of the last legislative session.
Was Brandon Pritchard still in the legislature when Luke Simon got kicked out of the legislature? I feel like he was, and I feel like he defended Luke Simon on the floor of the House.
I don't think he was, actually.
Okay.
I think he had like a weird, like half session, I think. I'm pulling up his legislative biography. Yeah, he was only there 2023 to 2024. And I think Simons was expelled in 2021.
I thought he's expelled in 2023.
Could be right. No, on March 4th, 2021, Luke Simons was expelled.
Okay.
House of Representatives.
So it was before Pritchard. Okay. Gosh, it's been 2
Not
sessions
lies
since then.
when you're having a
Wow.
good time.
Yeah, yeah. I love the fact that Pritchard called for his McNally's resignation over the most sort of small. I mean, again, he shouldn't have done it, but so superficial. And I will tell you, Brandon Pritchard and his ilk, they do not lose easy. They never give up. And so they lost at the crap show of a district convention. And now Dustin McNally is going to be on their watch list. I assume McNally will get challenged in June of 2026 by one of these guys, but wow.
And they'll be under scrutiny, every social media post, and the thing is, I don't mind that kind of scrutiny.
Neither do I.
They can all be under.
Here's the deal, Rob. We've talked to McNally twice. This isn't exactly some flamethrower sort of posting a bunch of exciting stuff on social media kind of guy.
Exactly the sort of boring, policy-focused lawmaker that we've been calling for. I don't want bomb throwers. I don't need Dustin McNally to entertain me. As good, I mean, don't get me wrong. When politicians do weird stuff, it's good for my livelihood. It gives me a lot to write about. I am speaking against interest when I say this. I would prefer them to be boring.
Yep. Well, and you just look at Dustin McNally, and maybe I'm misreading the whole situation. He doesn't seem particularly unethical either, but who knows? I maybe wouldn't have said Jason Doctor was unethical either. And he's
listen, if we had covered something about Dustin McNally, that's truly a problem, and not him, using the state outlook to draft some talking points and costing the taxpayers exactly nothing. You're
going to call him out.
I will call him out. I would absolutely write that story.
And the other thing is pull up this clip of me saying, hey, look at him. He's a nice guy. He couldn't do anything wrong.
Yeah.
McNally, you're on notice.
I think, yeah. I mean, I think everybody, I like Dustin McNally. I think he's going to make a good lawmaker. That being said, we all have a job to do holding these people accountable. But it does illustrate something to me about Brandon Pritchard and the rest of them, is that ethics to them is not like a guiding principle so much as it's a convenient cudgel they can reach for to try to beat up the people that they oppose, whether the ethics claims that they're making are valid or not. I mean, that's what they think of the ethical process, is it's because if you really believed in ethics, then you have to talk about Lori Van Winkle. You have to talk about Nico Rios.
I think particularly Van Winkle. I mean, she essentially stole a week's worth of pay by not showing up, right? I mean, it's
not the word I would. I mean, but you didn't do anything illegal.
Yeah, but okay, maybe she didn't do anything illegal.
I think if you're somebody, well, by the way, she is somebody who routinely votes because the legislators, they excuse absent members at the end. Right. If you're not excused, you don't get paid for that day, and so she routinely votes against excusing other members of the legislature, a lot of times who are missing because of family events like a wedding or health issues or pregnancies. She votes against excusing them consistently. Several sources in the House. Usually it's a voice vote.
Rob, let's be clear. If somebody works in the Public Service Commission or any other state agency and they just don't show up to work for a week and they don't get paid unless they take annual leave. Right. Or what if there's an employee who just comes there and just sits there for a week and doesn't do anything but collects their paycheck? I think that's sort of stealing from your employer.
I'm not defending it.
Yeah, for sure. I understand.
I'm just saying she didn't do anything illegal, but boy, if she had some integrity, she would have given up that pay. And by the way, we could talk about Brandon Pritchard himself, who raised money for Citizens Alliance for an organization. The organization he actually had people donating to was called NDYR, North Dakota Young Republicans, but then transferred all the money out of the North Dakota Young Republicans Fund into Citizens Alliance. And I had donors telling me, I want my money back. Quoted them on the records. I want my money back. Because I feel like it was a bait.
Did they get their money back?
Oh, I don't believe so. I have not.
Let me say, Rob, right here and right now, that if Brandon Pritchard hadn't lost his last election, I would be calling on his resignation for all of this stuff. But he's got nothing to resign from, so therefore we can't do that.
For all we talk about Brandon Pritchard, I mean, he is good at getting himself attention.
Oh, so good.
Just being an unconscionable troll. Yep. His track record in terms of influencing the flow of North Dakota politics is negligible. Sometimes I wonder why I talk about him so much, other than the fact that he's hard to ignore. But what impact has he really had? I mean, you look at the last election and in the primary last year during the 2024 cycle, and he had a slate of, what was it, like 18 candidates that he was pushing,
including Brandon Pritchard.
including Brandon Pritchard, and almost all of them lost. In fact, I think
including Brandon Pritchard.
I think the only ones of the people that he backed that won were already incumbents. Right. All the challengers he backed lost. I mean, he got his rear end kicked. And so I mean, there may come a point where even people who are supportive of Brandon Pritchard's worldview about moderate traditional Republicans are going to wonder, is this the guy that we want? Because what is he accomplishing? He's not accomplishing anything.
Well, he's very good at failing forward. There's no doubt about that. But in terms of you deciding if you should write about him, the problem is he does stuff that's so interestingly ridiculous that it's hard to ignore because it's so ridiculous.
It's entertaining. I'll give you that. Hey, we wanted to finish up the show. We got a text. And by the way, if you ever want to send us text, leave us voicemail, 701-587-3141. Tony from Grand Forks says, "Hi, Rob and Chad. I was listening to episode 640 with the governor, and some of his comments reminded me of Grand Forks Herald article I saw the other week. I appreciate he said that it's government's responsibility to ensure that power consumption costs aren't passed on to residential ratepayers and that we have enough energy for these data centers. I'm worried that's not the case. Sometime before the 15th, Xcel Energy requested a 19.35% rate increase, the largest in over a decade. In testimony documents, they cited the need to charge North Dakotans more for electricity due to new energy infrastructure projects and expanded operations. Public Service Commission already approved an interim increase of 11.88%, pending approval of the full 19. It sounds like we don't have the energy capacity for these data centers, that the government has been unable to curb these rate hikes. Would you guys be able to talk about that and maybe provide some more details regarding these cost increases?" So I want to say, first of all, what goes into a rate increase is often very complicated, and its demand is far from the only factor. I think what's driving the Xcel rate increase in particular is not so much demand, but their investments in new types of energy. I mean, Xcel in particular serves Minnesota, which is a market that's put a lot of new mandates on where the energy comes from. In fact, we had a big lawsuit with the state of Minnesota, North Dakota, because they didn't want energy coming from coal so much. Well, the thing about that is those investments cost money. Building the transmission lines, to out to all those different wind turbines and everything costs money. And ultimately, when you're in that industry, even if it's not Xcel Energy directly making those expenditures, even if it's some of the power producers that they just buy power from, somebody's got to pay for it ultimately. And so ultimately, at the end of the day, it hits our pocketbooks. So I think, Tony, it's fair, because I'm concerned too about AI data centers driving up. That is the one thing. I'm not worried about a lot of the other things that other people are worried about. I am worried about electricity rates.
So I also worry that some of these utility companies might use data centers as an excuse to raise rates in some way, because it seems like this Xcel one probably isn't connected to data centers in any way, because it's Cass Electric that's funding Harwood.
As more of these data centers come online, it doesn't mean it's not going to be the case in the future.
Right. No, for sure. And so I think we would need to probably dig deeper into the Xcel case specifically, and I think you probably talked about some of those variables. But the reality is, I think we have the lowest electricity in the country, as Sherry Haugen pointed out to us, and so there's probably some room for increases that we're going to see. I think this issue about energy consumption and energy costs is going to be something that the data centers are going to continuously have to deal with and respond to.
I think that we need to do it in a way. I think Governor Armstrong said it right during your interview with him, in that is the one role probably the primary role. There's other roles too, but a very important role for government in that process is to make sure that that this doesn't come back on the backs of ratepayers. And we think about the industries that these data centers serve. They're serving companies like Google and Facebook, et cetera, et cetera. They can afford to pay.
They can afford to pay, absolutely.
Not put this on the back of North Dakota ratepayers. I did hear somebody told me, and I'm forgetting who, and I have not looked into this at all yet. But they said that other states have passed laws sort of in situations like this where you have a high energy. It wasn't just data centers, but like factories and things like that. You have a big energy consumer. Sort of tying the cost of that consumption to that consumer. And that intrigues me. I don't know if it's the right way. I'm not endorsing that. I find that intriguing, and I want to explore that a little bit more and see if that's maybe something that's right for North Dakota. But I think Tony is absolutely right to be concerned about that. It's something that I'm concerned about it. But the other particular thing, the really interesting thing that North Dakota has is we produce a hell of a lot of energy, and we have the potential to produce a hell of a lot more. And North Dakota, maybe unlike some other parts of the country, has the ability to maybe bring some of these data centers online and just keep prices where they are just by just ramping up production.
Yeah. Well, and I think, the interview we had with Justin Kringstad talking about Bakken East and getting natural gas over to the eastern part of the state to accelerate some of their energy production so we don't have to bring it down from Canada and other places. I think there's some stuff in the works here. But again, I wouldn't trust a bunch of politicians and utilities saying, don't worry, your rates will never go up. I think you have to stay on
I think you have to hold them accountable. I have to say, if rates start going up, then,
what are we going to do?
Heads have to roll figuratively.
Yeah.
I hate that we live in an era where I have to make it clear that I'm not literally calling for the decapitation of.
Yeah. No, it's important that you do, though. You do point that out. Hey, Rob, I just have to say it's good to have you back this week because last week, being in the captain's chair, it's a different role. Like doing transitions and all that kind of stuff. Like I told people I felt a little off last week because I wasn't just able to fight with Pat Finken because I had to worry about transition. So I feel much more comfortable in the number 2 seat because I just get to show up and just say what I want.
I appreciate that. You did, by the way, for you saying that you were off a little bit, I thought you did great. I
appreciate that.
Not a step down from our usual product at all. I enjoyed it. Was fun for me to just be a spectator.
Sure.
On our own show. I really think with our friend Matt's, our producer Matt's help as well, that we have produced something really marvelous with Plain Talk. I don't think that people are getting this sort of discussion anywhere else in state media where it's sort of long form, uninterrupted. We're not driven by we're not out here just trying to make people mad so we get callers. I think it's just people having honest discussions and honest disagreements and honest agreements.
For God's sakes, we had Steve Flippin Forbes on Wednesday,
which is pretty fun.
Pretty cool.
And that was cool for me, by the way. I mean, I grew up, Milt Friedman, Steve Forbes. These people shaped my worldview. And to this day, I think they're right most of the time. I'm not as enthusiastic about a flat tax as Steve Forbes is. Maybe disappointed in me to hear that.
Let's be clear. I'm not sure anybody's as enthusiastic about a flat tax as
Steve Forbes has made the flat tax. God love him. And you got to admire somebody who just sticks to their guns. I think I'm right on this, and I'm just sticking to my guns. But I really appreciated having him on. All right, we're gonna stop there. Once again, if you want to send us text, leave us a voicemail. 701-587-3141. Follow us on all the social media things, TikTok, YouTube, Facebook, X. We're at Plain Talk ND. Our YouTube channel, by the way, has been really kind of taken off lately. We've seen a lot more people watching for longer on there. Subscribers have been going up. So that's great. By the way, at some of these platforms you're listening, like Apple, Spotify, leave us a rating or review. That always helps. Give us a thumbs up or thumbs down, I guess, if that's how you feel. On the show, all that stuff really helps out.
I question why you'd give us a thumbs down and listen to a whole episode or 2 hours a week.
But there's one thing that Chad and I agree on. It's that Chad and I are awesome.
We're great at this.
And we didn't subject anybody to baseball talk at all, despite the fact.
Here's the deal. We're recording Friday's show on Wednesday. So I was going to end this with saying go Dodgers, but I don't know what's going to happen.
By this time, the Dodgers and the Yankees could be out of the out of the postseason picture.
Even if they're out, though.
Wait, the Dodgers. Yeah, you guys are playing in a wild card.
Yeah, they beat the Reds last night.
That's right.
Again,
We did not.
they beat the
We did
Reds
not
on
beat the
Tuesday
Red
night.
Sox last night, and I was tempted to be like, "The heck with Steve Forbes! I'm doing a whole show on Aaron Boone's management of the pitching staff because I have some thoughts."
Okay, so now that we're into baseball a little bit, I do have to say, I sent a text message to you and the governor on Tuesday that just said, "When are the Mets playing?" And Rob was he was so defensive for that's just uncalled for. I'm just busting his guts a little bit. And Rob's like, "Stop being mean to the governor. Kelly's doing okay. He's the governor."
That was me being a little sarcastic. And I will note, I did ask the governor after the Mets lost if Juan Soto signed with the Mets so he wouldn't have to work in October.
That is the best sort of talking point. Soto gets the month off. So, well, and the governor also pointed out that his wife has been giving him a hard time about the Mets as well. So
I would like to be a fly on the wall when that's happening. When Chris is dumping on Kelly about the Mets, like, what's your root for a real team?
Yeah. Good stuff.
All right. We're going to go. Thank you so much for listening. As always, we'll talk again. That's it for today on Plain Talk, the voice of North Dakota politics. Plain Talk is a production of Forum Communications Company. Got a question, comment, or suggestion? Leave us a voicemail or send us a text message at 701-587-3141. That's 701-587-3141. If you haven't subscribed to Plain Talk yet, you can find us on YouTube or your favorite podcast platform like Spotify or Apple Podcasts. For those of you who are already hooked, give us a rating or review. And don't forget to share or tell a friend. Special thanks to my co-host Chad Oban, and from myself and everyone at Plain Talk, thanks for listening.
I feel like we're sort of interjecting.
I don't know. I think a lot of these activist lawyers
let me finish my point.